Hey plant friends, welcome back to another video on Plant Tips with Jess. So in today's video, I'm going to be discussing the 3 most common houseplant mistakes that people make. So the first one is we are going to be talking about water, second is going to be sunlight, and the third one is going to be soil. So the number one reason a lot of people kill their houseplants is because they tend to overlove them. I know that when we get a new houseplant and we're getting into this new hobby, we want to do everything possible to prevent our plant from dying. And so we think plants love water. Let's give them water all the time. They must love it, right? Well, wrong. You can actually drown a plant and cause a lot of root rot if you are overwatering your plants. So thanks to me, I'm gonna help you guys prevent that. So it's all gonna depend a little bit on the plant, and as you get into more plants and different varieties of plants, you'll find that some plants like a little bit of more moist soil and some plants like to dry out in between waterings. So for example, this great philodendron, this guy you definitely do not want to overwater. They prefer to get dry before they get their next watering, and also they are pretty vocal plants. So most plants will talk to you when they need water. Their leaves will start to curl, they'll look all shrivelly. So if you see that in your plant, I would go ahead and feel for the soil, feel if it's like super bone dry, and if it is, then that's a hint that they may need water. However, I know that method works for a lot of people, but personally, touching the first 2 inches of the soil isn't enough for me. I need to know if that soil at the very bottom is dry as well. That's why I invested in a water meter, and it's very affordable. You can find it on Amazon for about $12. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you guys how it works. Let me just go ahead and grab it. Okay, so this is the soil meter that I love to use, and I have mentioned this soil meter to you guys a couple times. So it has like a dry, moist, and a wet range. So this philodendron, I believe I watered it yesterday, and it looks really healthy. None of its leaves are shrivelly, so it doesn't need any water. But if I wasn't sure if it needed water, I would go ahead and find kind of like a little spot towards the middle and stick this soil meter in there, and it reads dry. Actually, I watered this like 5 days ago. I'm bad, it wasn't just yesterday. But as you can see, it's almost in the dry range. It's like on number 3. I'm probably gonna wait another day or 2 because it does not look thirsty at all. Like, look at the foliage, it's still really plump. It's not curling, it's not speaking to me that it's dying for water. So I'm gonna wait another 2 days before I go ahead and give this guy a good watering. And when your plant does need water, make sure that you're giving it a good watering. Make sure that you're watering very slowly all around the pot, not just in one section, because you wanna make sure that you drench all of the roots inside of the pot so that every single root gets water, not just one part of the plant. So that is watering, you guys. Do not overwater your plants. Invest in a water meter if you're unsure when to water. Even as an experienced plant person, sometimes I look at some plants and I'm still unsure if they need water. So this guy always saves me from overwatering my plants. So I really, really love this water meter. I feel like it's a must-have in your plant collection. Okay, so the next thing, sunlight. So before you buy a plant, I want you guys to assess your home and look at how much sunlight you have in every single window. Because although we buy lots of plants, there are some plants like this Monstera and this Ficus that I have behind me that love sunlight. And if you guys just don't have like a south-facing window or like a west-facing window that gets a lot of sunlight during the day, these plants might not be as happy. They possibly could survive in your home, but they're just not going to thrive and they're not going to grow as fast. So that is definitely something to consider when you are plant shopping. Just kind of assess your home for how much window you have, kind of where you want your plant to be, and then shop according to what you have at home. For example, I had made a video about low light plants and low maintenance plants. So if you have a situation where it's low light, a philodendron is going to be an amazing buy for any low light situation. Even if you have brighter lighting, these guys are gonna thrive even more. You just don't want it directly in front of a window because these guys like a lot of medium, bright, indirect light. You don't wanna give them too much sunlight because they could possibly burn their foliage, and that's for most plants. Most house plants, you don't want bright direct sunlight, you want bright indirect sunlight. So yeah, go ahead and assess your lighting situation in your home. Another thing that I love to do is you can go ahead and check the compass on your iPhone and then point it towards your windows. So south facing windows are amazing because they get a lot of sunlight I think they get the longest amount of sunlight throughout the whole day, and an east facing window gets a lot of like bright morning sunlight, but not so much in the evening. So just take that into consideration, what direction your window is facing, so that way you know how much sunlight your plants are gonna get throughout the day. So that's another tip. The next one is soil, guys, and this is probably just as important as watering. You really wanna make sure that whenever you repot your plants, you have a very well draining soil. So you don't want something that's super water retentive. Try to stay away from soils from big box stores that say like water moisture, like they try to retain a lot of water and moisture. There's like these little like water gel things that some soils have that you kind of want to stay away from because they're going to absorb a lot of moisture and retain it, and that could potentially cause root rot and not allow your plant to dry as quickly. You don't want a plant to stay super wet for a long time because that can cause root rot. So I personally love to use cactus soil for all of my plants. I just buy like any generic cactus and succulent mix from a big box store or at my local nursery. I find that cactus soil is pretty much foolproof. It's hard to have a plant root rot in that kind of soil just because it is very airy already. And the one last thing that you want to make sure that every single plant has is you want to make sure your pots have drainage. So if you do not have a hole at the bottom of your pot, that is not a good thing, you guys. Whenever you water, you want any excess water to come out of that pot. You don't want any excess water to stay at the bottom of that pot because that excess water is going to cause moisture, it's going to cause the roots to rot, and you're going to get a really bad infection for your plant. So make sure you guys have drainage, a hole at the bottom. Also, I'm going off a little bit on a tangent, but the type of pot that you get is going to depend on how fast your plant is going to dry. For example, if you purchase like a ceramic pot that has drainage at the bottom, that is excellent, and I'm happy that you guys have drainage at the bottom because the excess water is going to leak out. But ceramic pots tend to hold onto moisture a little bit longer than a terracotta or a cement pot because terracotta and cement pots are very porous. As you can see, it has all of these stains from like the minerals in the water because the water leaks out through the pores of the wall, as well as on cement pots, the water leaks out through the pores of the wall. Versus a ceramic pot, the water is not going to leak out through the pores of the wall, it's just going to leak out through that drainage, which is totally fine and it's a great option, but it's just going to take a little bit longer to dry if that's something that you notice. So those are my 3 main tips, you guys. If you start to have a problem with any of your houseplants, go back to the basics. Check if it's getting an appropriate amount of sunlight or if it's getting too much sunlight. Check if it's getting enough water or too much water. And then make sure you have a well-draining soil, and hopefully your plants will be happy. And honestly, you guys, gardening and having houseplants is just an adventure. You're gonna have to play around with things a little bit until you find what your plant loves in the area that your plant loves in your home. So thanks for tuning in, you guys. Also, one last thing, I wanted to shout out my friend. She started her own shop and she made me this cute little sweater that says "Plants Make Me Feel Alive," and I feel like it's so fitting for me because they give me so much joy and a lot of positive vibes in my home and in my life. So feel free to like, comment, and subscribe this video. It's a free way you guys can help me out, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.